Shields up, Ironbreakers, and welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. So earlier today we received some brand new gameplay straight from the Tokyo Game Show stage, and that gameplay was of the Scarlet Forest. This is actually the first live gameplay we've ever seen of the Scarlet Forest. The game was being played live in Tokyo by Takuda-san, the director, and he was trying to show us as many details as he possibly could. So ever since that video went live, naturally we did a reaction as it was going live, but I've been watching and rewatching the video, trying to squeeze as much information out of it, and also reading some shoddy YouTube translations to try and understand what the Japanese dialogue is about, because, you know, we had the English presentation with the CMs, but there's still a couple of things that are kind of like lost in translation and all of that stuff, and I wanted to see if I could squeeze a little bit more out of this, and let me tell you, there's actually quite a lot to talk about, and even though I might get one or two things wrong because I'm not 100% sure of the Japanese translation that I was reading, there's definitely a lot of juice in this footage. So let's get things started, and as you guys can tell, right now we are in the camp. This is still in the Windward Plains. This is the camp that we have at the Windward Plains, except now we're looking at it at a different time of day. This is actually like closer to the end of the day, a little bit more in the evening, and this was, again, one of the first looks that we've ever had at this locale a little bit later in the day, which was pretty friggin' cool if you ask me. So now we're going to be getting on our sacred here, and we're going to be jumping off into the map, and you can see just like the different colors that we are getting just from the different time of day. If you've already seen any gameplay footage of the Windward Plain, you'll notice that it looks very different. That notification right there was we found an unidentified monster. It basically said unidentified monster discover, and then it said Baunos, which I'm not sure if that's just like a translation of Barnos. Now, a really cool thing that happened just there, let me like rewind here. You can see that there's a notification on the bottom right hand side, and that is a notification of a 4-star Balahara. Just appeared into the field. Now, this 4-star thing is a system that I already talked about in previous videos. Monsters will have different strengths as they show up on the field, and depending on the strength of the monster, you might be able to get additional rewards. Now, the really important thing that is actually revealed here, and it will be revealed a little bit in more detail a little bit further in the video, is the fact that if you see those additional rewards, those are decorations. So if we go and we kill this particularly slightly, I don't know how much stronger it is because I don't know the concept of 4 stars versus 1 star because I haven't really played that much of the game to get into that, but I would imagine 4 stars is significantly stronger than your average Balahara. And if you pay attention, if you go and you beat that Balahara, it is going to give you an extra 5 decorations as rewards for taking on that higher difficulty challenge. So this to me would indicate that we're back to using the world system, which was RNG decorations, which after returning to world, to be honest, after comparing the two games, I actually kind of prefer it. I understand it's not going to be to everyone's preference, and I'm not trying to convince you that my point of view is right or your point of view is wrong. I honestly look, this is what I prefer. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but it does seem that that is going to be the case. Now, keep in mind, this is still very much speculation based on just looking at this screen, and you will see it a little bit further ahead with different rarities and stuff like that. Which is actually right now, as you can see, we have a picture of the map here. You can see a bunch of different monsters. And now if you actually look at this screen, this is showing us the different monsters that are available on the map and the different types of bonus rewards that we can get because we are going to be fighting slightly stronger monsters than usual. You will see that the Chatacabra in there is 3 stars. Like everything is 3 stars with the exception of that Chematrice, which is the second to last monster in this list. That's the Chematrice. It was announced in a previous trailer. It's the big angry chicken that we're getting this time around. It's a brute wyvern. But with the exception of that, as well as the Balahara that just entered the field, everything else is 3 stars. And then you can see the bonus rewards, and you can see the different rarities. Like you have blue rarity decorations here, yellow rarity decorations here, and I would imagine that these are all random because you can see the question marker up top. You also see an indicator here that tells you how long before the monster leaves the locale, which gives you an idea as to whether or not you should engage in that particular fight. If you're good enough to kill it in the allotted time, you should be fine. Otherwise, the monster might leave on you. Not exactly sure if once you start a quest, the monster sticks with you for the 50 minutes. It might, because you do get a timer every time you start a quest, would actually make sense. So it's just to kind of inform you, okay, in about 13 minutes this monster is going to leave, so keep that in mind if you decide to engage another monster and how long that is going to take you, and that will tell you how much time you still have before you have to go fight this one. But again, one of the biggest things about this is that I think we can pretty much confirm that we're getting random decorations back. So with that, I would expect us to be able to craft charms in the same way that we're able to craft charms in World. But again, all of this is speculation based on the footage that we were shown today. You can see that they're cycling through the monsters here, cycling through the different rewards and all of that good stuff. So let's go ahead and see what else we got. So right now he's going to sneak up to the Chemetries because they want to aggro the Chemetries to do some shenanigans and showcase a brand new mechanic, which is pretty cool. You can see that on the left side there's notifications about all types of things that are in range. So in here, one of the things that the developers mentioned is that you don't have to collect tracks like you used to do in World to like get investigations and all that stuff. That is no longer a mechanic. However, if you do choose to collect these things, you can still get materials as well as points from them. You can see the points popping up when he picked up the thing, and we also got like a blue Chemetry scale. So these are things that you still get. Now, right here, you see the time of day change very abruptly. It is important to mention that this is not something that is going to be happening in the final version of the game. This was a debug command that they ran because this is a, like we talked about, this is an in-development build, and they basically issued a command to change the time of day to a time that was more suiting for them. So they're going to lure over the Chemetries to show you how monsters interact with one another. So the Chemetries is a monster that eats carrion. This is like carcasses of dead monsters. And as the Chemetries eats that carrion, it is fighting with other monsters for those resources. As you can see, we have a couple more beasties here. I don't remember the name of these smaller monsters, but these guys are also carrion creatures. This puts them in direct conflict. And as such, if you bring a Chemetries close to them, they're going to see it as a rival, and they're going to like, hey, you're stepping in on our turf, and they're going to attack. And as they attack, as you can see, we can get ourselves a nice little down, which is pretty friggin' cool if you ask me. Now, I do love the attention to detail there of like, oh, we have these monsters, and they're, kind of like opposing one another because they're both fighting for the same resources. That's kind of like a really neat detail. And I'm assuming that these might be more or less aggressive depending on the current season that is happening in this locale. Because remember, we have the fallow, and then we have the inclemency, which is when the lightning strikes are happening, and then we have the season of plenty. And I think that's where we're at right now, the plenty, but I'm not sure. Now, in this next section, they're going to showcase seamless traversal. They're going to actually traverse to the Scarlet Forest, but as they were doing so, they were explaining how you can pick up stuff from Sacred. You don't really have to aim your slinger. As you can see, the thing is not even in the screen. They press circle and they still pick up that null berry completely off the screen. So long as you're in range and you just press circle, you're going to be picking up all types of stuff that are around you. I was wondering how this is going to work, if you were actually going to have to go ahead and aim the slinger, but you don't. You just press circle and it's going to pick up stuff as you are moving along, which is very, very convenient. Now, as you guys can see, the scenery is changing slightly, and right now we are entering the Scarlet Forest. And we're going to be entering the Scarlet Forest in its current fallow period. And I don't know if that's how you pronounce fallow, but this is what I read in the website. And so a couple of interesting things. And here the developers spoke a little bit about what causes the red tint of the water, but because of YouTube's shoddy translation, I couldn't exactly understand it, and I'm not entirely sure if the developers were also being somewhat ambiguous, because one of the questions that we've kind of had as a community is whether or not the red water is caused by the Lala Barina, or if the Lala Barina webs are red because of the red water. Now, right now, my speculation on this, and again, based on what developers said and some shoddy translation work and some chat GPT, because I don't speak Japanese, I still want to talk to Gaijin about this, but My hypothesis here is the reason why the water is red is because of mineral content in the water. Because one of the things that the developers said as we reach this area is that this is a high and abandoned area. Again, this is rough YouTube translation, which if we go through, it kind of talks more about just remote and abandoned. And if we remember some of the footage from the trailer, we'll see that there's like ruins of ancient civilization in here. So in a lot of ways, if that ancient civilization utilized any form of metal, which is possible that they did, that metal, with all of the erosion of water and all of that stuff, could rust. And as it rusts, you know, you have all of that, all of those little particles of rust going through the water, which would give it a reddish tint. And then whenever we get the downpour, which is the next thing, that kind of like cleans the water up and it looks real nice. But then once you go back into the follow and things stagnate again, the rust starts pooling up and the water gets its red tint again. And that would be how the Lala Barina gets the red stuff. Again, speculation based on shoddy YouTube translation, but it makes sense because usually a lot of the things in Monster Hunter, even though it is a fantastical setting and we're wielding big chonky weapons and fighting big chonky monsters, the developers do try to draw inspiration from reality. They merge existing creatures together in order to create these fantastical creatures, and they try to make things in a way that, you know, serves a certain logical sense. So that is my current theory. I don't know if that is the case or not, and if anybody actually speaks Japanese, feel free to correct me in the comment section. I'll be sure to pin your comment to the top, or at least give it like a heart thing, so that people can see what the developers actually said, because at this point in time, I'm not entirely sure. Now, as we're walking through the forest here, we can see a Lala Barina. Later in the video, we will also talk more about Lala Barina, because apparently some of their habits change based on what they're doing, so it's pretty cool. But we saw the seamless traversal while we're going from the Windward Plains straight into the Scarlet Forest. Now, the reasoning behind that is because these two particular locales are adjacent, but not every locale is going to be adjacent, from my understanding, from what I've been reading in interviews and all of that stuff. So this doesn't mean that you'll be able to navigate through all of the locales in the game, but if locales are adjacent, you should be able to seamlessly traverse through them. Now, I paused here because there's a couple of little details. So these little fishy boys here, Takuda-san actually mentioned, and I believe that either Joe or Jono also mentioned this in the English stream, these little dudes are going to be able to tell through the scent of blood whether or not the player character is injured or even other monsters are injured. And if if they find them to be injured, they're going to attack. So these little fishies are going to attack you if you're low on hit points, or they're going to attack monsters if the monsters are wounded. Now, another thing that we have here is also these little thorn trees here. If monsters charge these trees, they're going to get, not trees, branches. But if monsters charge these branches, they're going to get wounded, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that. So you do have a certain advantage fighting close to them, and then hopefully the monster will charge away, hit those branches, and is going to get wounded. So that's kind of like a specific feature of this. And considering that they're close to the fish, it's kind of like a double whammy from my understanding. So the monster will hit those thorns, get wounded, and then the fish will attack, and you'll be able to attack. And it's really, really cool for taking advantage of the environment there. So now we're going to be hunting for another Lala Barina. The notification there is indicating that there's a Paratoad upsurge right now. I'm going to be trying to do some stuff with the footage because it looks a little bit whitewashed. They probably messed something up in the live streaming settings or something like that. So there's a sneak attack right there. The two things that popped up that you can see, there's going to be like two things popping up right as we do the sneak attack. This is an achievement pop-up that says Assassin Hunter, if I'm not mistaken, and that also unlocks like either a new title or some type of guild card shenanigan for you. and we're going to start fighting the Lala Barina. Now, an interesting thing that you will notice here as we begin the fight is that Takuta-san either forgot or purposely forgot to eat before he started the hunt. So you can see that our stamina and health values are not particularly high, which is less than ideal. Now, I want you to pay attention to what he's going to do here. He's going to pop up one of these bad boys, and this right here, the Google translation says well-grilled steak. So I'm just going to assume that it is a well-done steak because it kind of just makes sense. And I want you to see what is happening here, because whenever you select this item right before you use it, it's going to give you a preview of what's going to happen. And you can see that our stamina is increasing, but also our max health is increasing. Now, this is not to be confused with health boost, because health boost extends your health beyond the max health. But still, the simple fact that this gives you a similar effect to like a max potion, maybe it's not as powerful as a max potion. Maybe if your health was a little bit lower, it wouldn't be as much. Not exactly sure. But basically, it doesn't just affect your stamina, it also affects your health, which is pretty friggin' cool if you ask me, because, you know, as we all know, considering that rations are faster to consume, that wasn't that much reason to really consume well-done steaks, and this kind of puts meat back on the menu, quite literally, so that was pretty cool. So, and here they're going to be talking about how the Lala Barina also uses, like, its paralysis abilities. She has, like, a sting on her back that does paralysis, and she does this little thing which drops those Lala Barina florets. And yeah, if you touch those, there's a chance that you're going to be getting paralyzed. Now, let me see something. He's going to do it on purpose. He's going to run into one of those. And here is a really cool thing. You guys can't really see it because there's text on top, but I'm going to make the text a little bit smaller. And now you can see it up here. That right there is a status indicator. This was actually indicated to me by Gaudium over on Twitter. I saw her talking about this on my timeline. And that right there indicates how close you are to getting a status ailment. So whenever you get hit by a paralysis or probably a thunder, and assuming that like there's still thunder blight and all of that stuff, or a poison or any other type of status, it's going to give you a build-up information here of how much before you get that again. And he's going to go for a second one on purpose. And boom, as you can see it triggered. And now you can see it right there on the up left-hand corner that the thing filled up all the way and now you're paralyzed. That's a pretty neat little status indicator that we didn't really have before, which is kind of nice. Then the Lala Barina is going to hit you with Stinger. And they're going to do a little bit of a back and forth with Lala Barina here. Now, one of the things here that you will see is that we finally have that quest start. It didn't start immediately after you hit Lala Barina, so it took a couple of hits before it actually started the quest, but this is your seamless quest start. And another thing that you might have noticed here, let me just rewind a little bit, is that as you do the beginning of the quest, this the developers didn't mention, but as the quest begins, we're going to get a notification, that right there on the right-hand side, and that is indicating that supplies have been delivered. Now, for those of you that aren't aware how supplies work in Monster Hunter Wilds, it's not like the previous Monster Hunter games where it's like, oh, new supplies have been delivered, and then you have to go back to camp to pick up your supplies. No, new supplies get delivered by Alma straight to your sacred. So basically, you can call in your sacred, and then you can just go to the sacred bag by pressing, I think it's left on D-pad, if I remember correctly, and that will show you all of these supplies that have been delivered, and you can put those on your inventory and you're good to go. So what this tells me is that whenever you seamlessly start a quest, they're going to give you the same supplies that you would be given whenever you would start a quest through the quest counter or anything like that. Again, speculation based on what we're watching, but it does seem to pan out. And you can actually see the little indicator here that tells you, oh, you can press left D-pad when you're on Sacred. So yeah, that is pretty cool. But this is not the only way to start quests. Obviously, you can still start quests from the quest counter like you always have. And they also mentioned that you can start quests straight from the map. So you can probably just go to the map and select a specific monster, and that will begin that quest if that is something that you want to do. I'm still curious about how it's going to work with multi-monster quests. But yeah. One of the things that the developers are trying to do here with this Lala Barina is they're trying to enrage it because they want to take the Lala Barina back to its nest. Oh no, actually, the first time they're going to bring the Lala Barina over to, they used a luring pod there. In case you guys missed it, luring pods, you can basically get aggro on the monster. That's why it has that little laser lock-in on him. It's indicating that the monster has aggro. This was something that we received for the very first time in Monster Hunter World with the introduction of Extremoth. not Extreme Behemoth from the Final Fantasy XIV collab, but this time around, they're basically bringing the Lala Barina over to the Doshaguma to trigger a turf war. So you can see that Lala Barina is going to start trying to, impose itself, because right now the Lala Barina, I believe, based on what was said during this video, during the fallow period, the Lala Barina is supposed to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm not sure if the rust in the water, again, my speculation of the rust in the water gives her additional powers. Maybe that's related to why she's able to paralyze with the Lala Barina Florets or something like that. Again, heavy duty of speculation. Consume it with a significant chunk of salt. But yeah, I believe that during the fallow period, the Lala Barina is going to be more aggressive because she is potentially more powerful. So she jumps on top of the Doshaguma, and we can see the turf war starting. Looks like she's winning, but then Doshaguma is like, BAM! Straight up get beat! Doshaguma gives her the beats, but he does get paralyzed, and then Lala Barina is like, I don't want none of that smoke. You see the way he beat on me? Dude, I don't want none of that. Doshaguma is actually a very interesting monster, because he hits really hard, and he's very much a ragey type monster. Now, here is the part where they were trying to enrage Lala Barina to get Lala Barina to follow them, but Lala Barina, for some reason, was not cooperating. Like, I'm looking at the minimap, and it seems that she's enraged, but they kept telling about how, oh, we're trying to get her enraged to get her to do something. And as you can see, they are trying to move over to the Lala Barina nest, which is that right there on Zone 4. They've even marked it, but I think that Lala Barina is going to stop following them halfway. And by the way, another important thing that they've stated is that turf wars will happen even if you're not there, which, if I'm not mistaken, that was not the case in Monster Hunter World. I mean, you guys probably remember a bunch of times that you would go to a place where two monsters were, and they would start fighting immediately when you got there, because I think most of the time they wouldn't do turf wars. Again, I don't remember if that's the case or not, but whatever. I actually don't understand why they're fighting her here at this point, because they kept talking about, oh, we need to get her enraged, but she is enraged. Anyway, he also did the swapperoo, swapped weapons, and now he's got the light bowgun, and he got paralyzed. And one of the things that they wanted to showcase here with the light bowgun is that if you are a ranged user, you can actually shoot down the Lala Barina Florets, and they will get destroyed. Like, I think he does that right here. Yep, right there. Boom. You can shoot those, and they will be destroyed so that other players will not be paralyzed. So that's what they were showcasing. Once again, we saw them use the smart healing system there. For those of you that are not familiar, the way that the smart healing system works is that depending on the amount of health that you have left, it will automatically choose whether to use a mega potion or a regular potion or potentially other healing items in your inventory. Which, to me, I think that is a good thing, and that is also an optional thing as far as I'm aware, so you'll be able to swap that over to manual if you want to. So, you know, this is not something that like, oh, I don't want that. Okay, that's fine. Just configure your radial menu to however you feel like, and it should be perfectly fine. So this was when they were actually trying to enrage her. I got a little bit ahead of things. Like, listen, I've been looking at this video all day long. Bear with me a little bit, all right? But yeah, they were trying to enrage her to see if they could bring her over to the nest, but at some point they started saying like, oh, we don't have that much time left, so we need to just showcase the thing, and they actually move on, and they go to bring her over to her nest. And here he's trying to do the focus strike, but he's apparently missing because she's being very evasive. So he's not landing that focus strike on that wound, but then again, that wound feels like it's in a kind of like tough spot to reach. There it is. The focus strike, he nailed it. He got a break and got an instant part as well, but now the monster is no longer enraged. They're going to heal up, and now is when they're going to start trying to enrage her so that they could bring her back to the nest. But I think here they actually just give up, and they're like, ah, whatever. Let's just go over to the nest. And that's what they're going to be doing right here. As you can see, once again, Zone 4, that is her nest, and we'll get to see the nest, which we've already seen it in one of the trailers. They showcase like the whole red thing, and this is where, again, based on the whole stuff that I was talking about with, is it the Lala Barina that makes the water red, or is the water red because of Lala Barina? And in here, during this section, they actually talk about how the webs are red because of the water, which would indicate that, you know, again, the water is red for some other reason, which might be rust, might be something completely different. But that is why the webs are red. But again, shoddy YouTube translation. I'm not 100% sure if that is the case or not. Again, if you are a Japanese speaker, you'll be able to inform us better. So please do leave a comment. I would really appreciate that. So they're picking up some stuff, and in here they were talking about how bone mounds, this time around, you can actually get bone mounds from dead creatures. So if you kill like a small monster, even a big monster, eventually other monsters will come along, like for instance the Chematrice, which is a carrion monster. They will consume the carcass, and then the bones will be left for you to harvest, which is a pretty cool system, but again, it would take some time. There's still like the static bone, not really static, but like, you know, bone mounds will still be out and about throughout the world, but they will also be dynamic based on whether or not monsters have died there and they've been consumed by carrion-eating monsters and all that stuff. And here they were also explaining about, oh, this is where the Lala Barina shows up and starts spinning around and doing the attacks that you guys saw in the trailers with the rose butt and spewing out Lala Barina florets and all of that stuff. And in here they were swapping over the build because they want to go over to the Scarlet Forest during a downpour. So the downpour is the inclemency period of the Scarlet Forest, and it is the equivalent to the lightning storm that we get in the Windward Plains. Except in the Scarlet Forest, what happens is there's a huge downpour of water, and that is going to cause the, you know, the color of the water to kind of like wash away, and it becomes clear for when it goes into the season of plenty, where everything just looks like a paradise island. They were talking about that little plushie in Ryozu's hand. They were saying, oh, this is like the plushie from Gemma, which is a Yan Kutku plushie. Looks really cool. Wish I could get one. Probably going to be a Japan thing if I was to guess. And this right here is the new title screen. They've confirmed that this is what the title screen looks like. You have Alma, you have your Palico, so that will be customized based on the armor that you have in your Palico. Then you have your Hunter, which again is going to be customized with whatever your Hunter looks like, as well as whatever armor you happen to have equipped on your Hunter. Now, one of the things that people pointed out here, let me see if I can pause this at the right time, is this right here is like something about trying to connect to an online server, which obviously there isn't one because this is an in-development build. But a lot of people were quick to point out that like, oh, this is not a PlayStation 5 build. Now, look, I don't know whether this is a PlayStation 5 build or not. I would assume it is. The reason I would assume it is because the team stated as much. They literally said this is running on PlayStation 5. Now, it is not running on a regular PlayStation 5. It is running on a PlayStation 5 dev kit, because regular PlayStation 5s don't actually run games that haven't been through certification process and all of that stuff. So in development builds don't run on a PlayStation, a regular, like the one that you have in your house. The PlayStation you have in your house is not going to run an in-development build. It's just not built that way. At least not legally, as far as I'm aware. Whereas a dev kit will. And this is one of the things that a lot of people were saying, oh, but it's keyboard key configuration. It's like, number one, you can play video games on PlayStation using keyboard. I don't know of a lot of examples, but I know that you most definitely can play Final Fantasy XIV with a mouse and keyboard on a PlayStation. That is definitely supported. I don't know if there's other games that do that or not, but regardless of that, I believe that the keyboard key config is just there because, again, this is a build that is in development and it is running supposedly on a PlayStation 5 dev kit. Now, if you want to believe that the team is lying, that is your prerogative. I'm not here to prove you wrong or prove you right. I'm just reporting on what the team has said, which is this is running on PlayStation 5 hardware. And some people were quick to point out there's a quit thing on the menu. Yes, because again, it's a dev kit. You might want to quit, go into debug. Hell, I've seen the debug menus of the Gamescom build because it crashed during my live stream. You can probably see some of that crazy stuff in there as well, except it's all in Japanese, so you won't understand much. But yeah, that's why this thing shows up in here, and that's why there's conspiracy theories around right now that this was actually a PC build. Again, I don't know if it is or if it's not. The information that I have from the team is that it is a PlayStation 5 build. And not a PlayStation 5 Pro, just standard PlayStation as far as we know. It might be a PlayStation 5 Pro dev kit. I don't know if that is the case or not either. What we heard from the team, running on PlayStation 5, that's it. anyways, this right here is your character select menu. Now, Ryozu was careful to point out that this is not final, but there's a very important piece of information here that you can instantly tell, and that is that the sacred is customizable. You can see different colors in here. These are not your regular sacred colors. I believe Tokuda-san said that he was trying to color it to look more like Lala Barina, even though it's got more of a yellowish tone than necessarily a whitish tone. So, I don't know, maybe he didn't get it right, or maybe I misunderstood what he was saying, but, you know, this is their first draft at what the character selection screen is going to look like, and personally, I think it looks friggin' phenomenal, and I love the fact that you can fully customize your sacred, which is pretty friggin' sweet. One of the things that they also mentioned as we are getting ready in here is that as the story progresses, there are going to be more base camps that become available, and there are going to be story moments that progress from those specific base camps. And we're about to see one of those. We're going to see the Scarlet Forest base camp, but they don't really give us a whole lot, which is why I'm pausing right now, because they're just going to go pretty much straightforward. I think they look a little bit to the right, and then just move on. It shows us that we have the caravan there. Where is it? Right there. There's the caravan. So this is actually something that causes me to question. Does this mean that our camp is going to be moving, or are we going to be establishing new camps? As you can see, we have Eric over here, which is from the Astrum unit, because for those of you that aren't aware, there's 2 expedition units that we know of right now. One is ours. Each expedition unit consists of 1 hunter, 1 handler, 1 smithy, and 1 palico. So you've already seen ours. We have Gemma as the smithy, we have Alma as the handler, we have our character as the hunter, and we have our palico. Now, the people that we see here, at least this guy, is from the Astrum team, which is the other expedition team, and he is the handler of Olivia, which is that lady with the big hammer, and then Athos is her palico, and there's a guy called Werner, which is their blacksmith. So I'm actually wondering if potentially we have a camp. Our camp is established in the Windward Plain, and then this would be the camp for the Astrum expedition team. They haven't really spoken too much about this, or if they have, I didn't really understand it, so, you know. But maybe this could kind of work like one of those situations where you have Astera, and then you have the 3rd Fleet base, kind of. But I'll be curious to see what the other camps are going to be in other locations. Are there going to be other teams that are going to be sending out? Then we're going to be establishing connection with them. This might also explain one of the trailer scenes where we actually see Olivia showing us her camp. It might be this right here, the Scarlet Forest camp, which is not that different from our own camp, if we're going to be completely honest. Now, as I've mentioned, right now we are during the downpour phase. This is why the visibility is reduced. There's massive water pouring down. It's raining like all hell, even though the visual detail doesn't really let us see that all that well. And you'll notice that the water is no longer red because it is being washed away. Like all of the contents that make the water red are being washed away by the massive downpour of water. And now we get to see Uth Duna, who is the apex predator of the Scarlet Forest. Now, currently we are rocking the full Lala Barina set, including Sword and Shield, which this Sword and Shield is going to give us paralysis, because that's the element, not the element, but the status element of Lala Barina. One of the things that they spoke about Uth Duna here is that whenever he splashes into the waters, he creates these waves that will like knock you back. And even if they don't knock you back, they kind of like limit your movement. So think of it kind of like when Namiel would do her water thing and she would move the water. It would cause you to like kind of get stuck in there a little bit. But yeah, you guys can see that that's what he does, and then he obviously belly flops. I gotta say, this is one of the happier monsters that we've seen. I mean, just look at how majestic he is whenever he's belly flopping through the water. So we're seeing a clash here with the Sword and Shield, which looks pretty cool, and finishes with a big bash to the face. Now, Tokuda-san is showing us here how there's different way that damage is handled when it comes to the veils of Uth Duna, which are these little wing things, the flaps that he's got going there. You'll notice that those damage numbers are different. They almost look like when you get negative affinity hits. And that is because those right now are protected because he's in his element. Apparently it has something to do with the water, and basically it gives him an extra layer of protection. However, you can break through that, but what that means is until you break through that veil, you're going to deal less damage in those zones. So you're going to have to choose, do I want to break the veil so that I can just like attack wherever I feel like, or even get broken parts and all of that stuff, or do you want to hit the body, which is going to be much more vulnerable than those veils. That's the way that that is going to work. So now we've gotten into the Season of Plenty. I'm not exactly sure. They didn't really talk too much about whether or not this is a bit of a disadvantage for him because there's no longer pouring rain coming out. But I would assume that he'll be at a bit of a disadvantage when he's on land. Also, when you're on land, you're no longer affected by the whole thing where water hinders your movement as he's belly flopping around and all of that stuff. So, you know, stuff to keep in mind. Now, the developers here said, okay, look, we're not going to spoil this whole fight for you. You'll get to fight Uth Duna when the time comes in the final game, which, to be honest, is something that I heavily prefer because I want to get as least spoiled to me as possible. So they're going to move on. Now just look at how everything looks completely different during the Season of Plenty. Season of Plenty is whenever everything looks way more vibrant, way more beautiful, all of that stuff. And the behavior of monsters is going to change. This is when they started saying that Lala Barina's feeding habits are going to change as well. Either that or the shoddy YouTube translation failed me. But they were saying that like Lala Barina is going to change because the water's no longer red. And that is one of the things that leads me to believe that Lala Barina is weaker when she doesn't have the red water to draw from. And again, my theory is that rust maybe gives her the paralysis or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, in here we see a bird landing on that Venus flytrap and squish. I think they were kind of lucky with the fact that that happened. I don't think that that was scripted. It might have been, but I don't think that that was scripted. So they were just kind of lucky that that particular interaction happened, and, you know. And here we see them going up to the tree canopy, and now we're not really going to be seeing any more combat, if I remember correctly. It's just going to be a couple of cutesy... Oh no, there is more combat. There's still one monster that they're going to be showing, but I mean, who could remember him, right? Nobody remembers him. They're moving over to this very specific location, which apparently has a ton of honey in there. And you guys will start seeing some familiar monsters from the days of old Monster Hunter. Oh, look at him! Look at him in there! Oh, it's your boy, Congalala, sleeping in this veritable grove of honey. Look at the honey just oozing through. Let me tell you, I'm going to be visiting this place often because honey is a very important resource in most Monster Hunter games, and I expect that to be the same here. So I'm going to be visiting this place often, and I'll tell you what, if our boy Congalala is in here, I'm going to have to put him down. Now look at how they do this poor Congalala dirty, just like sleeping and boom! Roll a mega barrel bomb right into his face. He is instantly going to bring out the good old flatulence, and he's going to start eating a poison mushroom. And that poison mushroom gives him the ability to spew out poison breath. So that was one of the things that they wanted to showcase, Congalala's versatility in eating different mushrooms and gaining different abilities, which is pretty cool, but fundamentally we just love seeing our boy back, right? Look at the Congalala go. I can't wait until newcomers to Monster Hunter get carded by Congalala and then he goes up to their corpse and just poops on them, because that is what he does. He's going to go up to you and he's going to poop on you. In case you guys are wondering what is the, at least in the olden games, what was the effect of getting pooped on, it basically means you can no longer heal yourself until that debuff wears out. That is the stinky buff. So while you're stinky, you can't heal yourself. He got paralyzed because he's using the Charge Blade, but it is the Lala Barina Charge Blade, so he paralyzed both the Congalala, and I forget what the name of the small ones is, Congas, maybe? I don't know. Dealing tons and tons of damage in here, just completely taking our boy to beat downtown. And as you can see, he's just like spewing those poison breaths because that's what he does. Now he's going to lure him away using a luring pod because he wants to take him to a nitro shroom, wherein we're going to be able to showcase another one of the abilities of Congalala. But Congalala just animates really, really well. I think he's a really good addition because you need some of these monsters that are a little bit on the sillier side, which Congalala is a little bit on the sillier side, let's be real. But it's just like really cool. Oh, here's a new mechanic, massive beehive, and apparently you can use your slinger, bring out the bees, and the bees will start attacking the monsters, and apparently these bees will also poison the monster. So they're attacking him, they're, you know, poking at him right in his behind. But the real funny thing that happened is how Congalala decides to deal... Sorry about that little message thing there. How Congalala decides to deal with the bees, which is he basically just poops on them and kill them. Did we miss that, by the way? Because of my little message sound? Yep. Look, he pooped on the bees, killed the bees with poop. That is very nasty, but that is what Congalala does. You also don't want to hang around Congalala's butt all too often because he might poop on you as well. But as you can see, he picked up that little nitro shroom there. And this gives you the same debuff as poop. It's kind of like his little poop breath. And now he's going to be eating that little nitro shroom, and that is going to give him a different ability from the poisonous mushroom that he ate before, which was toadstool. And this one gives you the sparks. Big fire breath right there. It is what it is. So basically, depending on the mushroom that he consumes, he is going to have different effects. There's also a special mushroom that he can dig up, which is the Conga truffle. And that particular mushroom is going to give him the ability to use both breaths and maybe a couple of more things added into his arsenal. So that's also pretty cool, but the interesting thing is, if you are able to interrupt him before he eats that mushroom, you get to keep that mushroom and use it as an ingredient. Now here, something very important is happening, and this is something that I'm a little bit concerned by. Notice how the dev right there is still in combat. You can tell because the mini-map on the bottom left-hand side is red. But even though he is in combat, he's going to be calling out Sacred to basically fast travel to a different location. So he just fast traveled in the midst of combat. Now, there's two things that can be happening here. Either Capcom just said, hey, you guys can just, you know, fast travel outside of danger whenever you want, almost like having infinite Farcasters, which is one of the ways that I saw it addressed by the community. Or they were able to do this because it is a development build and they just have that thing enabled to be able to use it whenever. Now, personally, I don't think you should be able to just exit combat unless you're using a Farcaster. Farcaster, I think that's fine, but you still have to craft the Farcaster, have it with you, use it. That I think makes sense. But just opening up the map and fast traveling out of there, I don't know. Personally, I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense, and I hope that that is not the case. But anyway, let's continue. And here they were talking about how we have several pop-up camps, and it was revealed yesterday that the pop-up camps are limited. So it's not like you could just go to every single place that you can put a pop-up camp in and just pop one down. So you are going to have a limited amount of them. I'm assuming limited per locale, or maybe even think of them kind of like great wire bugs in Rise, where, you know, eventually you just be able to get a bunch of them. But anyways, in here, they jumped into the camp and they showed us one of those neat little animations that you can get, which basically your Palico trolls you. So our hunter is sharpening that knife, and now the Palico is going to troll him, because the Palico is like, oh, let me see that knife. And he shows the knife, and the Palico goes like, ooh, let me touch it. Ah, I cut myself. Oh, no. Ah. And your hunter's like, oh, no, what do I do now? And then the Palico reveals, hey, I'm joking. I love these little detailed animations. I always called out to a lot of these. I've given plenty of examples over the years. Like, the animators in Monster Hunter, they absolutely love their work. And that type of interaction is how you can tell. Now, in here, they're going to show us the new fishing mechanics. This is something that I don't tend to do very often in Monster Hunter, unless I'm, going like a specific fish that I need materials from, or for a specific ingredient for the place where you eat the canteen, a specific canteen ingredient. Usually those would be the occasions where you'd catch me fishing. Most of the time you're going to catch me hunting. But this looks like hella fun. I'm just interested as to how these systems are going to play a role into the game. You can see that he's going to be throwing his cast. This is something that we've done before, but this time it's a little bit more in depth. You can see that you see the fish coming in there. One of the fish is going to do his thing, going to pick up the fish. Boom. There you go. But then you have, whenever you are going after bigger fish, like that one right there, there's big fish gaming, big fishing, you know, big fish catching, whatever you want to call it. We've had that before in other Monster Hunter games as well. And that also usually has like a little bit more of an involved minigame going after those with pressing different buttons. It seems that this time around you're going to basically move your rod in the direction that the fish is moving, and then when the fish jumps, that's when you want to like start pulling and doing the usual fishing things. I don't know exactly how this mechanic is going to work, but as you can see right there, he's now reeling the fish in, but it's going to take quite a bit of a struggle to reel that bad boy in. So I'm assuming you're going to have to do like some stamina management, all of that jazz to really get everything right. And then eventually you're going to be able to pull that bad boy out of water, and you'll see just how big this thing is. This thing is massive. She doesn't even pick it up, it's so big. Like, watch. He's going to be pulling it out, and boom. Look at the size of that sucker. It's bigger than the hunter. So yeah, that seems like it might be a little fun thing to do in between hunts. Because, you know, I think that gathering between hunts is an important aspect of Monster Hunter. Even though I know a lot of people disagree with that, it is what it is. I'm curious to see what type of things we'll be able to craft from the fishies themselves. Now, this time around, they're going to be moving us over to the Windward location, and this was the final bit that they showed us. One of the things that they said while they were here is that you can actually trade things with them, and you can see the trading symbol right there on top of the head of the Woodwoods. And I'm assuming that's going to work kind of like the Veggie Elder, like maybe we'll speak with them and they'll go like, hey, do you have this material? It's kind of neat. This dude was collecting Congalala fur, and then he's just like laying on top of the very soft Congalala fur. But yeah, I'm assuming that these little trading dudes, you'll be able to just go up to them, and it works like the Veggie Elder. They'll ask you for a material, you give them that material, they'll give you something else. So on and so forth. But one of the things that developers wanted to show us was what you get to do with the Woodwoods at nighttime. So they're going to bring in another debug command. I think they're going to bring in a debug command to make basically the time of day go to night. Or as you can see, the time of day is already kind of like darkening. So pretty soon it's going to be nighttime, and they're going to climb up to the top where the Woodwoods will do a barbecue once it hits nighttime, which is pretty cool. But that is kind of like the whole presentation. That is all of the things that I was able to extract from this. Did I miss anything? If I missed anything, do point it out in the comments. I am super interested in knowing. But yeah, lots of new mechanics. This video is actually longer than the gameplay that they showed because obviously I had to pause and give context to a lot of the things that were happening and my own personal interpretations of some of the stuff. So in here they're basically just biding their time, waiting for the Woodwoods to come upstairs because I think this is probably during the Season of Plenty at nighttime, they come up here and they do a little barbecue thing. And one of the things is you can basically use one of the Woodwoods to do the motley mix for you, which is when you give the raw meat at the canteen, and then they'll cook stuff up and you get items and stuff like that. That is one of the functionalities that you will be able to get from up here. As you can see, they're now arriving. A bunch of Woodwoods. They're going to be sitting down. They're going to be drawing a fire in there, and it just becomes like a very homey and cozy environment. And again, it's just one of those little interactions that a lot of players aren't ever really going to do, but you know, it's still going to be a thing. But yeah, basically, if you guys enjoyed this video, this breakdown took a long time to do. I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like, It helps me out immensely. And if you are interested in more Monster Hunter Wilds content, do be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, all of that jazz. And yeah, once again, any Japanese players, in particular players that understand Japanese, if there were mechanics that I've missed, if there were interesting tidbits that developers said that I've missed, please do let me know in the comment section down below, because it helps out a lot for me to collate as much information as I possibly can about upcoming features and stuff like that for Monster Hunter Wilds. But yeah, they're going to be starting up the campfire here any minute now, and then that is when they're going to end things. Now, one of the things that I would also like to point out, I love the fact that Alma follows us in here. Like, as you can see, look at how homey that looks. And Alma's like taking notes. Alma's studying the woodwoods and the stuff that they're doing and all of that good stuff. But yeah, February 28th can't come soon enough. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.